Same old game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome to this podcast review for December 21st, 2025, and I'm Jay Ledbetter.
And I'm Brennan Cassidy Supreme.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, for this conversation. Boy, am I very, very excited to dig into this. Not only are we talking about one of the more compelling films of the year, this one is getting tons of
supremely compelling
awards buzz. And if the recent weekend box office numbers are any sort of indication, this film is well on its way to killing once Christmas comes later
I
on
cannot
this
wait
week.
to see those numbers. My sister wants to see this movie. Like, that just goes to show how the reach is.
Yeah. And what's all the more exciting with this episode, not only are we talking about Josh Safdie's new film, Marty Supreme, but we are joined by Marty Supreme himself, Jay Ledbetter. Jay, as well, is back to the show. Welcome back, my friend. So
wow, I'm back. I can't believe it.
Back.
In sort of a Safdie-esque sort of irony. First time I've been on a video podcast in forever. My son scratched my face up this morning while we were wrestling. So I'm pumped for this. And I mean, what a movie to come back for. I'm so excited to be back with you guys. It's been too long, and I'm excited to talk about this movie. We could spend an hour talking about Timothée Chalamet's marketing strategy for this movie.
We're gonna have thoughts about this.
I want to know. The one question I want to know is, what is a successful box office for Marty Supreme? Because I think this movie is kind of important. It's an expensive movie. Chalamet is doing like straight up experimental marketing for it. What is? When do we get to the point where we say Timothée Chalamet was right for doing a rap video on Twitter with some British rapper I've never heard of? Like, what is he figured? Has he figured out something that we clearly have not? I don't know.
If the movie does well, I think that'll be enough evidence to suggest that what he is doing certainly doesn't harm the marketing efforts.
But the thing is, it's like a $70 million movie. Like, if you had told me before this movie came out, not knowing any budget whatsoever, this was going to make $100 million, I would be like, huge success. Wow, incredible that Marty Supreme made $100 million. But that doesn't come close to breaking even for this thing. So it's interesting.
Yeah, well, looking at the tweets from over the weekend, Marty Supreme, now I think only played in like 5 to 10 theaters.
Yeah, it was
over
I think
the weekend,
strictly relegated to New York and LA,
Brooklyn, and I mean the people who they know want to see Marty Supreme.
Yeah, actually, so I do have the exact numbers here. It grossed $875 on just 6 screens. 6 screens.
That's a hell of an average.
Yeah,
it's pretty damn good.
That translates.
And that's what we're going to talk about, right? We're not going to talk about the actual movie. We're going to talk about.
No, we don't care about the movie. We just care about the money.
Right.
Exactly. That's all we're here for. This is a business podcast.
Just like Marty Mauser himself, all he needs is the money.
Exactly. So yeah, I think this is going to do well. I think it's going to make its money back and more. Hopefully, fingers crossed. You do make a great point, Jay, but the marketing has been quite interesting. And I did read, I don't know if this is true, I didn't verify it, but seemingly his response with that music video had something to do with him like being involved in some sort of conspiracy theory that he is said rapper with
people
the mask
thought
on.
that he was the rapper. My brother had to explain this to me.
I'm not entirely sure, but seemingly that's also why he did that as well.
Yeah.
So
look, he is very calculating. He seems to have a reason to do everything that he is doing right now, and he is doing a lot.
Yeah,
he is doing a lot.
Even the way he's carrying himself during a lot of these interviews promoting the movie, he like speaking about how this is not only his best performance, but how he has given many high caliber performances over the course of his career. Like, there's a lot of arrogance in the way that he's presenting himself, which is kind of representative of the character he plays in this movie. So
yes,
there is a meta component to that, as if it is bleeding into the marketing strategy in a very indirect way. I think there's something to be said about how all of this is trying to promote just the overall image and the marketability of this movie. Like, I don't think that's an accident at all.
He's
I don't
sort of
think
the
so
one
either.
person doing what JD says he hates, which is turning art into sports.
Well,
He's the
it
one
is a
who's like,
sports movie.
yeah, I
so
want to win.
it's
Like,
a
let's
sports
go.
movie, so I get it. He's
Yeah.
dreaming big.
But this is why I love Timothée Chalamet. This is why I love it, because if we're going to treat art as sports, he is at least not pretending. He
No.
is leaning into the athlete superstar persona.
But he's
And
doing it in the right.
sometimes we hate it, sometimes we love it. But I love that he doesn't have, like, he's not carrying on some sort of facade. He's not even remotely pretending that it's anything other than that.
But he's not doing it to hopefully have like the outcome be this movie is going to win awards per se. If anything, the outcome could be smaller movies like this that we want to see do well at the box office will have their day to do well at the box office. That's a great after effect for something like this.
He
And
wants
I
to
think he
lead De
wants to
Niro.
win. I think he
Yeah.
wants to win awards.
Well, I mean,
He
that's
does.
and maybe he does, but at the same time, if the movie does well at the box office, then it's a giant win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the movie succeeding from a business perspective is important, especially
He's our first
for a
Gen
movie
Z
like this.
mega movie star.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that he's
Interesting.
leaning into it. If we're going to treat it as sports, we might as well be out in the open with it.
This is a way
There's
of
no
treating it
reason
as
to
sports
pretend.
that I don't necessarily mind.
I don't either. And I personally am not offended by it at all. And seemingly a lot of people are. He's putting out these videos and everyone's like, oh, congratulations to Leo. And look, Leo might win just because it's a great performance, arguably the best of his career. I think that is understandable if he just wins on for that alone. But Leo's not going to win because of that. Because he's not pretending that this is anything other
I mean,
than
how many
is what it
years, if you went back in the 21st century, were you like, oh, I'm satisfied with that best actor winner? It's probably like 30%.
30%, I was gonna
like
say,
not even your favorite, but just like, oh, that's
but a deserving
allowable.
one,
I'll
at the very
allow
least.
that. Yeah.
especially for best actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the batting average is not great for that category over the last 15 years or so. But this year, assuming that it's a 2-horse race between those two, it's a win-win.
That adds to the 30% for sure.
You guys think Chalamet's good in this movie?
Maybe
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about
All
it.
right. All right. You think he's good? Okay.
We'll talk about it.
I plead the
all right.
fifth.
With that laid out, I guess quickly before we get to Marty Supreme, a little Josh Safdie context coming into this. Jay, you were here. You were one of our extra film co-hosts at the time in 2018 when that film came out. Remind me, if I'm not mistaken, you were huge on that film.
I'm a
Uncut Gems.
Safdie.
Yeah.
I'm a Safdie fiend.
Safdie Fiend.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved Uncut Gems to death. One of my favorite films of that year. I can't believe Sandler wasn't nominated for that performance. And during the kind of great Safdie's breakup of 2025, I did put very early on, I put my chips in on Josh just because looking at what I will say, who got who in the divorce, all the premier craftspeople went to Josh. And I was like, okay, so does that mean he's like the real deal guy of the two? And The Smashing Machine, not a movie I loved. And so I felt pretty assured in my calculation in that regard. And, you know, we'll talk about this movie now, but yeah, I'm a huge Safdie's guy historically and was all in on Josh Safdie moving forward. He got Jack Fisk to come out of retirement or like whatever. I guess Jack Fisk is like always retired until he comes out to play again. But
Yeah.
getting Jack Fisk to be a production designer is the ultimate stamp of quality. Your movie's not going to be bad.
And
Yeah.
I think what you're speaking to there is what makes this a very different breakup situation than, let's say, the Coen brothers, for instance. Because when you see, let's say, a movie like The Tragedy of Macbeth from Joel Coen, and then you see movies that Ethan Coen has directed alongside his partner, Trisha Cook, movies like Honey Don't and Drive Away Dolls, you can kind of sense the sensibilities of each of them and how they bleed into each
Right.
other to make a Coen brothers movie. But when you see who's making what movies here with the Safdie's divorce, as you put it, it's pretty easy to assume that Josh Safdie was really always the director in this duo, especially
Yeah.
given Benny Safdie's experience as a very successful actor simultaneously. You see him in many movies like Licorice Pizza or even Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. He's actually very successful as a performer on screen. You might think that he has a very particular.
He's in the new Super Mario's movie. Like, I mean, he's
oh my gosh, he is. I forgot about that.
he's like baby Bowser Jr., whatever, baby Bowser, little Bowser. Yeah,
that
I mean,
that
he
weirdly
acts a lot.
tracks.
Yeah.
That weirdly tracks. But it does sort of confirm, I guess, that both Benny and Josh have a particular set of skills that they're very good at. And one of them just happens to represent those skills behind the camera more so than the other.
Smashing Machine, not a disaster, but not a movie.
It is merely fine. It's merely fine. And again, maybe that does prove my point as to what Benny Safdie is so good at, because he is someone that knows how to act on screen very well. And The Smashing Machine was a movie that I think mostly failed because of its filmmaking, but not its performances. So I guess that kind of makes sense for someone that does know how to act as well as he does to know how to capture good performances in a movie that is otherwise pretty mediocre, I think.
I mean, I think for me, it simply comes down to the storytelling. I think The Smashing Machine does have a visual thumbprint, and it has great performances. I think the storytelling lacks, and maybe that's just not
what if a
his
movie
strength.
looked like it was shot when it took place? That's the bold question Smashing Machine asks.
So
No, it's fine.
yeah, I mean, if we're comparing that to a lot of movies today that just have absolutely no direction or visual,
It put a
flair
little
at
bit of
all.
thought into its aesthetic, correct?
Yeah. And I do love how the camera walks and lingers in that film, especially during its more emotional, vulnerable moments. Again, he's making choices, whether they work or not. I do
Agreed.
appreciate that
Fair.
he's making bold choices. I just think that film suffers from a storytelling perspective. I don't think he knows how to get us from A to B to C at all. Like there's just huge missing gaps, and maybe that's the screenplay. I can't recall if he also wrote the screenplay or not, but I just don't think the storytelling is there, which is why I want to maybe be a little reserved as far as this comparison goes, because
The Safdie split.
if Benny works with a better
gotta pick.
screenwriter and a much better screenplay, maybe it is possible he makes a movie.
That's
as
a
good as
fair
Marty
point, JD.
Supreme.
He
That-
did
that is a fair
write
point.
the screenplay by himself.
Okay, so he just might not be a great writer. Maybe he needs to let go of the pen and just do all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
That could be the case, because I do think that's where Benny suffers, is as a writer in that film, and it's only the one film post divorce. So if he gets a hold of a Marty Supreme-esque kind of screenplay, I don't think it's out of the realms of impossibilities that he also directs the hell out of it.
We'll know for sure whether that theory tracks, JD, if Benny Safdie's next solo film is at least written by Ronald Breinstein, as we'll talk about here. If that's the case and it succeeds, then we may know at least who might carry some of the secret sauce when it comes to this partnership.
Yeah, because you guys might be right. As far as these two films are concerned, I don't disagree. Marty Supreme, spoiler alert, I guess, is a far superior movie between the two.
Far more supreme movie.
The more supreme movie. But it's a one movie sample size, and I don't think Smashing Machine is a total disaster, even if it's not a great movie overall. It's okay. But I don't think it had anything to do with direction or performances or anything of that sort. I think he just lets that film down from a right.
My co-host, friend of the show, Ryan McQuaid, claimed that actually the best member of the family tree, you mentioned Bronstein, maybe the most talented director outside of Josh is Mary Bronstein. Maybe that's the branch you want to go down with If I Had Legs, a film I adored. But not here to bash Benny. We're here to talk about Josh.
Yeah,
If I had
here
legs,
to talk about
I'd
Josh.
pick you.
I think
Great
he did some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, with that laid out, let's go ahead and jump into Marty Supreme. It is, as you guessed, directed by Josh Safdie. It stars Timothée Chalamet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Odessa Azion, Kevin O'Leary, Abel Ferreira, and the list goes on and on. Boy, there are a lot of people in this movie. If you're not familiar with Marty Supreme, it is about Marty Mauser, a young man with a dream no one respects. goes to hell and back in pursuit of greatness. All right, let's dive further into this. We'll start with you, Jay. What did you think about Marty Supreme?
I was recently on an episode where they kind of they split segments for film of the year. Everybody talks about their favorite movie of the year.
Okay.
And I had already done a 3-hour podcast on One Battle After Another. So I said, I don't want to talk about that movie again. I said, I'll talk about my second favorite movie of the year. I'll talk about Marty Supreme. So that is how much I love this movie. I think it is just proof positive that Josh Safdie absolutely has the goods. It is a film that just really feels like the kind of movie that I want to be made every time I go out and see a movie. It is so reminiscent of the great movies of the 1970s, which Josh Safdie has such a reverence for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a Chalamet skeptic for a long time. I've always kind of been like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I get it now. I've started getting it over the last 18 months or so. I think he's unbelievable in this role. His commitment, his lack of vanity as a movie star, like he does not care about seeming pathetic, whether that is in regards to, begging for other people's affection or wearing pink silk pajamas while playing ping pong at half court of a Harlem Globetrotters game in this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely stellar, and Safdie and his team continue to be the best casters in the game. I think, we have this new best casting Oscar. I'm like, how do you beat this movie? They got Mr. Wonderful, Tyler the Creator, and Abel Ferrara, and they all hit grand slams every time they're on the screen. Kevin O'Leary, who I believe is, I think, permanently a member of this. I think he just got a show on In Session Film, right?
Yeah.
He's like one of your best
Starts
friends.
next
Yep.
week. Yeah.
He's amazing in this movie. He's great in the movie.
He's great at playing
really,
himself.
really good.
Yeah.
And it does add an extra level of electricity to the show, or to the film in general. It is a movie that is mostly about that experience of being in your 20s and thinking that the entire world was in front of you. And it's also a movie about the limits that you'll go to be great at something that nobody cares about. That, I think, to me, is the most interesting angle, where he's so obsessed with being amazing at something that he is clearly very gifted at, but will never allow him to live kind of this amazing life that he aspires to. I love the asynchronistic score and needle drops.
Mm-hmm.
There are some movies where just like the first opening scene and then a needle drop, you're like, okay, I'm 99% sure I'm going to like this movie. I had that with Weapons, with the George Harrison needle drop early in that movie.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And I had it with the Forever Young needle drop. I was like, okay, I'm in good hands.
Yeah.
There is an argument that maybe Safdie is pulling out tricks that we've seen before, but if what I get with a movie is the same 10 out of 10 filet that I got a year and a half ago, I'm more than happy to consume it again. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily mind when a director pulls out some of those same tricks again, but maybe recontextualizes them in a different way, which is what I do think Josh Safdie does with Marty Supreme when you compare it to something like Uncut Gems. I do think both movies flow rather similarly. They both build off of each other as far as building like these mini conflicts that then escalate into bigger conflicts. They're very similar in that regard, but they crystallize so differently that ultimately each movie feels like its own thematic idea and its own thematic identity that they each have. I think this is the best movie of the year. I also don't know if it's my favorite movie of the year. I think that's a very different conversation, but as far as how this functions as a piece of filmmaking and how everything just works together simultaneously and keeps building on each other, I was surprisingly blown away by this thing. And I must admit, about halfway through, I wasn't sure if I was going to say that, because I felt like I was seeing some similar tricks just done in a different way. Maybe we'll get into some details as to how this movie concludes and what separates it from something like Uncut Gems. But the way this movie sticks the landing, it turned this into what I think is one of the best coming of age films I think I've seen in the past few years. At first, I
have thoughts.
at first I was very reminded of something like Sean Baker's Anora from last year, which I mostly enjoyed for the most part. And then it ends in such a way that just makes the movie for me. And my experience with Marty Supreme was kind of similar. But then I started thinking about something like The Worst Person in the World, Joachim Trier's film, and how that treats adolescence at a much older age than we normally see depicted in movies.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, Marty Supreme is doing something rather similar.
He's a worse person than her too. He's a
He's
bad
a much,
he's a bad
this
guy.
is the worst cis person in the world, or at least in New York City at this point.
There was very little irony to him maybe being the worst person in the world.
I don't think there's any subtlety in that regard. But given the fact that Timothée Chalamet himself kind of has this boyish kind of charm to him, his casting almost adds a meta component to this movie, that he is very much a child at heart that is chasing something that is much bigger than he is before he has to realize what that big thing he strives for is supposed to be. And there are reasons I'll get into later. Maybe I will. I haven't decided if I'll get into some specifics as far as personal reasons why the ending worked for me. But the way this movie crystallized, it kind of destroyed me. It kind of destroyed me. And I just,
Welcome,
I did
Brendan.
not, I feel part of the club now. That's all I'll say. Maybe we'll have
keep it vague, but
we'll have a segment at the end of this conversation, maybe where we can get into some spoilers as to what this movie's depicting. But I was kind of blown away by this thing. I don't know if I like it more than Uncut Gems, because that movie had such a novelty when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah.
And it is its own experience, but I think this movie concludes in a certain way that's more for me in this particular stage of my life. And I think at the very least, I think it's Timothée Chalamet's best moment as an actor that I think I've ever seen.
It's a looking backwards movie for you as opposed to a looking forwards movie.
It kind of is. Yeah, that's a
You're
great way to put
trying
it.
not to end up with a bullet in your head on the floor of a diamond store.
Yeah, I'm trying to end up in a very different place in my life, which is maybe a
You're
bit more
thinking-
hopeful, we'll simply say.
You're thinking about past regrets rather than how not to screw up in the future.
Yeah. I'm thinking about being a good dude.
Well, I am with you guys. I don't know if it's the best film of the year, but it's one of the very best films of the year. I can very much echo that. It is electric and propulsive, as we might expect with Josh Safdie from the opening frame. It is bursting with confidence and vibrancy. It has an energy that never dissipates. It somehow turns ping pong into the most riveting sport on earth, which, by the way, elite ping pong is kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. I have no idea how they can control a ping pong ball the way they do. It is quite incredible. But I do love how Safdie captures the sport in this prodigious way that's exhilarating in both action and emotion, which is obviously vital given that it's a film traversing the volatility of ambition and this deep yearning for greatness. And to see that come through in the filmmaking as much as we see it in Chalamet is quite sensational here. And speaking of Chalamet, I do think this is a career-defining performance. It is deeply engrossing and utterly captivating. And I think what really stands out is that its flashiness is born out of Chalamet letting Marty's ego and insecurity and hunger exist all at once.
Yeah.
Ambition can be inspiring and rousing, but it can equally be destructive and manipulative, a duality that is very much top of mind for this film. And I love how Chalamet lives in those gray areas. So at any given moment, Marty is charming, he's funny, he's repulsive, he's irksome, he's your best friend, and he's your worst enemy. He's all of these things simultaneously.
It's a hard line to balance. It
Very
really
much
is.
so. And while that will for sure lend itself to some rambunctious acting at times, it's all rooted in emotional nuance, which is why I think the ending to this film, for all the reasons you were alluding to there, Brennan, is just sublime, because it's a culmination of all those things. He was so obsessed with greatness and achieving something of significance that it almost left him isolated in the end. But then that epiphany comes as he's looking through the glass there and I nearly fell on the floor. It is
And
so good.
it's not even just that moment. I think everything that takes place in the final climactic battle, if you want to
Yes.
call it that,
Oh, yes.
is also
Yeah.
very
All
riveting
that.
because
Incredible.
Absolutely.
it starts
All of that.
recontextualizing everything that
100%.
he even
Yeah.
believes in.
Yeah, and we can certainly talk about that more as we go because I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think as a result, it's just one of those performances you just cannot take your eyes off of. It is completely magnetic. If he wins the Oscar, as we noted earlier, I think it'll be wholly deserved. I do really love this film quite a lot.
It's but I mean, obviously we've talked about the performances a little bit here, but
Mhm.
from a directorial perspective, again, maybe he's doing some of it's sort of like, can you punish somebody for doing the thing that they're better at than anyone else in the world over and over and over again? But this
I don't
film makes
ever
you
blame
feel like
Wes
you're
Anderson
having
for making Wes
a
Anderson movies.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This movie makes you feel like you're having an anxiety attack for 2.5 hours.
But honestly, I think there's something to be said about a filmmaker that knows how to keep doing the same thing
Mhm.
and then try to find new ways to present that same thing. I feel like that's
Terrence
actually
Malick, anyone?
harder to do than it is
Well,
to
you're talking to
find
the
some-
biggest Terrence Malick fan in the world, and you're talking to somebody who said this was maybe, his second favorite movie of the year. So I'm the one over here trying to play devil's advocate while also being like, anyone trying to play devil's advocate is wrong.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the direction in this film is sublime, and
Yeah.
it is relentlessly thrilling, whether they're selling shoes or trying to build up money to fly to Japan or playing table tennis, right? And
Mhm.
table tennis on the surface is the wimpiest, most embarrassing, quote unquote, sport you could portray in a movie ever. It is very interesting that in this great Safdie breakup of 2025, one guy did the most macho sport and the other guy did the least macho sport. And and Josh's film has a sense of masculinity, like insecure masculinity, that the other probably wishes it had. It is a film that looks incredible. Darius Kanji, one of the best working right now cinematographers, absolutely unbelievable. The Jack Fisk of it all. Production design doesn't necessarily mean the same thing movie to movie. They're we're not dealing explicitly with sets here. Jack Fisk has always been Terrence Malick's guy. Being Terrence Malick's production designer does not mean you go and build sets. It means you find interesting places to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's kind of what Fisk has done with this film, and it all feels so lived in. You are very much a part of this world. It is a transportive movie in ways that I think few movies are nowadays, because it does feel so tangible and so real and so lived in. From the production design to the performances to the way that everything is just portrayed on screen, it's a wholly engrossing cinematic experience.
I want to highlight the editing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh Safdie and Ronald Breinstein are the editors on this too. And it's very rare that you get a director and co-writer that's also an editor on a film. I think someone like Chloe Zhao is someone that we also see play all of those roles simultaneously. But then you also have one of the screenwriters as an editor here simultaneously too. And the way that each scene builds off of what came before, it's kind of one of those things that if you remove one scene, the whole movie kind of falls apart. And that's a very tricky thing to do. Every little moment builds on the next moment that preceded it, and vice versa. So it's just all perfectly stacked upon each other, which is what I think in a way that's what makes it very reminiscent of something like Uncut Gems. This is what Josh Safdie is apparently very good at, but he does it in a way that does feel very different. And I think a lot of it is because we're dealing with a character that is much younger than Adam Sandler's character in Uncut Gems. So it does give it this sense of innocence when compared to the arrogance that existed in a movie like Uncut Gems. This is a movie that has a very different kind of soul to it. And maybe this is also Timothée Chalamet's performance bringing a very different type of energy to this type of anxiety-inducing experience that the Safdies are clearly known for. But it just makes it feel so intricately tied to each other. And I love how everything is so well thought to bring it all together in that way.
And I think one of my favorite things about Safdie's direction and storytelling here, because I wholeheartedly agree with everything you guys are saying in terms of how enthralling it is we talked about the pace and the energy of this film
Yeah.
and its incessantness in that regard. And I do love that here. There's so much to love about this film, as propulsive as it is. But inside of those bursts of energy, he does find the quiet sadness that I think rings loud. And there's something about when he decides to go there in terms of how he builds these characters, the relationships that we see, the turmoil that Marty finds himself in. When he decides to maybe not slow down, but he certainly injects a little bit of pathos at just the right time. So I think of that moment when Marty comes home and he has that moment with Rachel in the back room of that shop, and you just see her completely unraveling there, which then goes on to spark a whole other trajectory for Marty in the back half of this movie. Or I think about that moment when Kay is reading the reviews, and even though we don't hear what those reviews are, we just get that shot, that medium
We know what the
shot
reviews are, just given
that
her
we
reaction.
know what it is. And again, it's this quiet devastation, or everything we see at the end of the film that we were alluding to, and not just the shot at in the hospital. I'll say vaguely, but as you guys noted, that final battle, there's some really great close-ups on Chalamet as he is battling internally with what steps to take in that moment. And there's just quiet tenderness to it that I think is great. So in between all of these bursts of energy are these great moments of humanity and emotion that helps balance out that thrilling tension that we see throughout the film. And I just love the pacing of this film in that regard. And I love how and when he chooses to show us those moments, because they tend to stand out more because of how counterintuitive it is to the rest of the film. But I think they're so well timed that the emotion that's bubbling there, it stings all the more when it does come.
Yeah. Who plays the actor that plays, I guess, is it Marty's cousin? The one that they stay at his apart. I guess it's his
The
uncle's
larger
with-
gentleman.
Yeah, the larger gentleman, the one that ends up
With
throwing the
orange
ping balls. Yeah,
the
but
ping
see,
pong
like
balls.
even he has a bit of an arc that ties to what you're saying, JD. There are
Yes.
moments where these characters have these sort of emotional epiphanies, if you will, that actually add an emotional weight to this movie that otherwise might not be there in lesser directors' hands. And it's those moments where individual characters are allowed to reflect on the situation and what Marty himself is putting all of these people through, and how selfish that he is, and the way they all come to that recognition is kind of painful. It's really painful. And I love how Josh Safdie is willing to give even the most minor of characters a moment to reflect on that. He doesn't just dedicate it to one or even two main characters. I love that.
Yeah. And the character you're thinking of is Dion, played by
Dion,
Luke
that's it.
Manley.
Okay, yeah. A very good minor performance.
Yeah, I agree. Quite memorable.
He's amazing, but he's also partly amazing because they cast a guy with an amazing look. That's what Josh Safdie and the Safdies in general have been so good at for their whole careers. Just, hey, this person is striking, not necessarily just because they're great actors, which oftentimes they are, but just this guy doesn't look like somebody that you would see in a Disney movie. Yeah. And it gives a texture to the film that so many other films are lacking these days, especially these days. It does lend itself to that 70s sensibility where it was just like, what's the most interesting thing we can put on screen?
It's so appropriate to call this kind of a 70s inspired movie, because Martin Scorsese was a executive producer on Uncut Gems, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall if he was an executive producer on this one, but this definitely carries a lot of similar vibes that you would see from someone like a Martin Scorsese, especially at the tail end of the American New Wave. Like, I see a lot of the American New Wave in what Josh Safdie now is apparently doing with movies like Uncut Gems and now this one. You really feel that experimental, grimy, urban kind of energy that just feels very uncomfortable, but also very lived in. I love that about this.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think, again, going back to some of the emotional weight of this film. I do love how that ties to the film's themes on obsession and greatness. I think part of why this film is so mesmerizing in terms of its emotion and themes is how Safdie ties Marty's obsession in this way that it's something that isn't like the film isn't actively participating with that obsession, but rather observing it almost clinically in a way and letting the consequences speak for themselves. In a lot of ways, we know that there's only one inevitable outcome for Marty. And I think by framing his pursuit from that lens, there is a subtle sense of tragedy to it in the sense that he clearly just has the one purpose in his life, at least at this moment in time. And he's not going to let anything get in his way, even if that means scheming and hurting others along the way. What's the line when Kay asks him, what if you fail? And he says something along
It doesn't
the
even
lines
enter
of,
my consciousness.
doesn't even enter my consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what makes the film so riveting
that
to
is
watch,
something a
because
23-year-old would totally say in
for
that
sure,
moment.
for sure.
Yeah.
And it very much gets to the core of Marty because he just acts instinctively. And Safdie just lets it all unfold until we see some sort of ramification to his extreme choices. And because he's so manic and impulsive, he doesn't notice, or even worse, care about how he's losing or affecting his relationships. And again, I love that the film doesn't really linger in that as much as it's there for us to know. And because there is no moment of catharsis, at least for most of the film, you can sense Marty becoming more and more unreachable, which makes for an incredible duality because his obsession does lead to some sort of competitive catharsis, even if it doesn't go exactly the way that he thought it would. But however you want to label that moment, it clearly does mean something to him. And then we get to those final scenes, which again, I find so remarkable as Marty is internalizing what he almost lost, or perhaps realizing that his passions are going to evolve now. However, you determine to interpret that, I do find it incredible in that one moment of true catharsis in those final moments, just incredibly well earned in terms of the storytelling here, the buildup of this character that just makes the wrong choice after wrong choice in that ambition and in that drive for greatness. But there's always something kind of bubbling underneath that, when those two things collide, there's only one inevitable way to respond there. And Chalamet taps into that in a very Chalamet way. It's quite entrancing.
Structurally, what I love about the movie is that it's sort of a rise to power movie where the guy never rises to power. It's a hero's journey where he never approaches heroism. From scene like 7, you realize, even as he's beating all of these people in table tennis, the scene for me where it clicked, oh, this is gonna be bad news, is when he does the interview at the Ritz. He's weaseled his way into getting into the Ritz, and they're talking to him about, oh, so what do you think about your semi-final opponent? Apparently like a 3-time reigning champion. And he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna do what they wish they could have done at Auschwitz and finished him. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is not going to work out. Not good. And this is not going to be, this is not the guy who's going to be able to do this. And it's so, it's like, even just saying that is like poison. It's so biting. It's so bitter. And from then on, there is an inherent magnetism to Chalamet that allows him somehow, in the way that very few people are able to do, to kind of overcome saying things like that and still kind of be like, but it'd be cool if he won this table tennis match.
That's
that's movie star power, which is just something you can't teach and is just sort of ineffable, and it's inexplainable.
That's a tricky thing about his performance.
It does speak to this idea that I never thought he was going to win. And so the movie then becomes about how do we get to him not winning? And it's incredible how it gets there.
And how he wins in the end, as far as what he wins, that's ultimately very different than what his initial goal was.
Well, and is it a
Oh, well, I mean,
What is
it's a
his
very
version
different
of
kind of
winning?
win,
Yeah.
I guess you can say.
Yeah.
We can get to that later. But what I do love about his performance, to your point, Jay, is that there are many moments here where Marty as a character either says something or does something where you think, well, this character is now officially just irredeemable. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
that you could do to redeem this
Yeah.
character. And yet somehow by the end, I feel like Chalamet is able to get there with Marty Mauser. And I think that is really tricky to pull off. A lot of that I think is also given when we get to the final confrontation, the final battle, if you want to call it that. It becomes this exercise in Marty trying to win something for not just for himself, but combating against the mentality of what he was chasing initially. It becomes kind of a symbolic win for him.
Maybe
And-
Marty becoming a martyr supreme.
Kind of does in a way. Marty the martyr.
Supreme.
And of course, Kevin O'Leary plays a part in all of that and sort of represents
Yeah.
what Marty was chasing after initially in a more symbolic way, which is why his character is so
He gives him
important.
a spanking on his little tush.
Well, and that's the other element I wanted to get to, because as much as I love the emotional trajectory and how that's woven into the film's ambition, the other duality at play here is how that ambition eventually is contrasted by Marty being constantly humbled throughout this film. And the only way for him to get to Japan is by humbling himself. And even before we get to that point, he comes home, and the first thing we see after the tournament is that he has to join the Harlem Globetrotters. The
Because there's
one
no money in
job-
table tennis outside
there's
of this
no money.
one tournament.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But he treats table tennis as it's this Olympic sport, which it is an Olympic sport now.
Which it is, but I mean,
But he treats it as the pinnacle of sportsdom, that it's going to be this thing that that the United States craves over. But he comes home and he's humbled by the fact that nobody gives a damn. And I believe you noted that earlier, Jay, that nobody cares about ping pong. That is the great irony here. So he has no choice, if ping pong is going to be his career, than to humble himself and join that, even if he doesn't like it. And then throughout the whole film, he's finding himself in scenario after scenario where he's making these horrible decisions, maybe making himself irredeemable. And as I noted earlier, he's perhaps myopically not realizing that he's sabotaging all of these relationships, and in the process being humbled when almost every scheme that he employs doesn't work out. None of it works out. He sort of lucks his way into it. In the end.
And I think that's what I love so much about the final battle, if you want to call it that, the final match of sorts, because if anything, what Marty is combating is his recognition of those things. It's him finally becoming aware of that flaw, that this is what he did. And
sorry to cut you off, because
No,
I
that's
do
all I
want
have
to
to
correct
say.
myself. He doesn't luck himself into it. He humbles his way to Japan.
He sells
when
himself
he shows
into
up. He shows up at Milton's party uninvited, begs for a plane ride, and the only way that he gets it is when there's a spanking that occurs.
He weakens himself a little bit. He takes
weakens
himself down a pedestal.
Yeah. So for a guy that is full of this brazen confidence and seemingly has all the answers, or at least he thinks he does, but really in every moment when things go south, he is forced to be humble and actively has to participate in that humblingness in order to get there, which I do think, in a way, to your point, Brendan, as far as how things play out in the end, and Chalamet's performance and Marty's epiphany as far as, the consequences of him being humble, I do think, and I think that's also what I love about some of these brief moments of reflection, those close-ups on Marty as he's determining what his next steps are going to be. I do think him being humble in a way is and that whole duality throughout the film is what leads to those final choices there in Japan with that match, and him knowing that if he's going to quote unquote win this match, what that's going to mean or what it's not going to mean. But I do find that polarity there incredibly striking.
Yeah, because before getting there, he finally was able to recognize what he always was and what Kevin O'Leary's character addressed him as. Essentially, he was a brat of a child. So what he was, and he finally came to terms with what he was, And
Yeah.
that's I think where the ending is very powerful in that regard.
I agree.
I think that is a big part of the finale, but I also think another part of this film, we get so many movies, and historically, how many movies have we gotten that are about two eras of young adulthood or adulthood generally? Post grad movies, think about The Graduate, think about
Yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde, think about your, countless movies that are just like, how do I enter the adult world?
Yeah.
And then I feel like you kind of skip an era, and then it's all about American Beauty, The Descendants, all these films that are about entering midlife, the midlife crisis movie.
Yeah.
What this movie is to me is a movie about that in between era where it's like, okay, I tried and it didn't go awesome. Now what am I supposed to do? Do I completely give myself over to the forces that I've been resisting for my entire young adulthood? Or do I now just kind of try to fall in line with the forces around me that will, this movie proposes kind of inevitably bring
this
me
year's
down.
Inside Llewyn Davis.
It's Inside Llewyn Davis is a good comparison. Yeah,
that's why I said the worst person in the world earlier in a weird way.
That's also a great one.
It's a film about that, not necessarily beginning or completely giving up point, but this real kind of inflection point of I can either choose to go down one road or another at a very, very particular point in life. It's one that's honestly kind of hard to show on film because it is something that is hard to portray on film, honestly. But I do feel like this film gets to that idea of, hey, you got to be kind of an ambitious shithead in your 20s. And now you got to figure out what you actually want to do.
It's kind of Robert Frost like in a way, like that point where like the road not taken, where you have two paths to go depending on where you're at there, and you find yourself at that inflection point. To your point, there, Jay. There's
but a less explored one of those crossroads.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it has a very interesting way of trying to find that third road that's not often explored.
And it's I would say it's more complex than just, oh, I now am moving away from my parents, or oh, I have kids now. It's this kind of ambiguous, like there's not anything necessarily directing me one way or another, but just spiritually, I feel like I have to pick a lane.
Yeah.
And that's where Marty is at the end of this movie, and he picks a very interesting lane in that final sequence.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about Rachel and her dilemma here, because prior to Marty going off to Japan, I think there's an argument to be made that she's having to come to terms with the fact that Marty may never be around, that it's just going to be her having to deal with this on her own, despite her desperate attempts to bring Marty into it. And, even at one point, there's that scene where he's like, I don't want anything to do with this. My goals are over here. My ambition is here. I'm getting to Japan. I'm going to win this tournament. So when we get to the end and he's at these crossroads, if you will, like there's something about how this film sets up the choice that Marty could have left and we would have understood that. We wouldn't have agreed with it, obviously, but it would have made sense given the trajectory of Marty to that point. But he gets to have an actual choice there. And I think maybe for me, I don't think that choice is really made until he sees, that moment there at the glass. I think that's when that choice is made. And I think that's why I used the term earlier in terms of him having some sort of epiphany that his goals might have changed, that his whole life is evolving in front of him.
I think that was certainly the icing on the cake in a way. I felt like he was leaning towards that choice even during that final climactic match of sorts. And especially and especially in the way that he interacts with his opponent at the end of that match. I wouldn't say congratulates him, but he greets him in a way that actually feels very humble and sincere, as if a recognition of him finally pushing against the tendencies that
Yeah.
he knew he was representing at that time. So
It
it
shows a
always
gratitude that we didn't see to that point.
and I think it's a gratitude that we are supposed to buy into, that is supposed to feel genuine, and I do think it
Yeah.
is very obviously genuine.
I
I don't
agree
think
with
it's
that.
trying to be ambiguous about that,
Yeah,
which
I
is
agree.
why when we get to the actual ending with the glasses you're talking about there, JD, I think if anything, it's sort of an extension of where this character was ultimately going to end up.
Yeah. No, and that's perfectly fair. Maybe it's more of a cherry on top, because I do agree that final match there in Japan, it obviously doesn't go at all the way that he wants to. Again, he's forced to humble himself in that moment, but also wants to prove something, that his ambitions had credence.
Yeah.
That he was the best.
He was very good
this.
at what he did. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But also an
And
admission that he wasn't the best in the entire world. I mean, and that's
And also he went about
that's
it in
the
the wrong,
arrogance
in the wrong
of your
ways.
20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not just the result, but also the process, where he has kind of realized in retrospect, hey, you know, I hooked up with a movie star while my girlfriend was pregnant, and meanwhile I trotted around the world like I was the best table tennis player in the world when I really wasn't. And
He was
it's
he
about
was he was competing against his arrogance is what he was doing. Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Incredible stuff. But again, depending on how you want to label that victory, or how, however that final match plays itself out there.
Yeah.
Again, I love how it proves something to him. And maybe that is the moment when the final swing of the ball is taken and we see that outcome there. Maybe that's when he realizes that I am one of the best. Maybe I am the best, but also this is the end.
I
think
that's what
those
I
things
if
can coexist.
I was very fixated on Timothée Chalamet's facial acting at that moment, and I feel like he is expressing that very thing. That this was purely for me and not for them, which was a
Exactly.
very different thing. And now I am ready to come of age, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, which is why
It's got some
ending scene.
some Randy the Ram in the wrestler energy to it.
It
Him
really
jumping off
does.
the
You're
top
not
rope, just
that-
like,
yeah.
all right, I've done what I need to do. I can now move on.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
actually a very good comp. They both
Table
end very
tennis is a
differently,
young
I
man's
guess.
game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure if Timothée Chalamet got in the ring with someone like Randy the Ram, he'd probably get his ass kicked. But very different story.
I want to ask you guys about some of the chaotic moments of this film, just going back to the film's energy and some of the choices that Marty makes here, because there are wild moments here. I think of the bowling alley scene, how that leads to the gas station sequence.
Oh, that's just ridiculous. It's
trying to get the dogs out of the house, which leads to a shootout later on in the film.
The house stuff is the one thing I've kind of heard people pushing back on, as like, it's a 2.5 hour movie. It's a long movie. People are like, they could have cut that out. And I think it adds to kind of him as a character in the world outside of table tennis, is what it does for me, is to just kind of further establish that hustler mentality that he has to have just to get himself to the tournament. The way that he stretches himself just to be able to do this thing that he prides himself on so much, that again just is not very financially lucrative.
Well, the thing that I should say the reason why those sequences, like the house sequence, the shootout that you're talking about there, Jane, why they still work for me, it's when you start looking at it through the perspective of the Rachel character played by Odessa Azion. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but the fact that she's the fact that she's willing to put herself in these situations because of the affection that she has for Marty and she wants to relate to him in some way. She wants him to be a part of her life, and this is tragically the only way she feels like she can do it and knows how to do it. And most of those situations are kind of governed by her interaction and her participation in those moments. And I feel like those sequences work primarily when you try to look at it through her eyes and how she participates in it in a very extreme way. And there's actually something rather tragic about how she's trying to relate to the man that she feels like she loves, who she claims is, the reason that she is pregnant. And for those reasons, it just adds a tragic kind of nature to it. I think that it adds a purposeful nature to it because of her interaction with all of it.
Especially because, as we noted earlier, Marty was very blunt about that relationship, that he wasn't going to commit himself to it because of his ambition and that drive for greatness. So the only way for her to be involved, to have any sort of tethering to him, is to indulge him in this desperation to get money so he can go to Japan. And maybe along the way, if it gets her a little scratch as well to help her out, then all the better for it. But she indulges in it just so that way she can be close to him and maybe
like
find a way to make that work. It's the only way that she knows how.
There is an ounce of him that's like, I know I have some responsibility for that. So that allows this other thing to like leech onto his sense of self-importance. And so it's another thing weighing him down as he tries to pursue this great, and in his eyes, grand goal.
And maybe
so there's an ounce of him that's like, I do have this responsibility, but it needs to be alongside. It's a sidecar to my greater journey.
But maybe this is her way of testing him in that regard. Like, listen, you have this responsibility to bear. I'm carrying that responsibility. What are you going to do if I am part of the danger? Are you going to change your tune at all?
Well, her husband's great.
So. Oh, her husband is lovely. Absolutely.
Just incredible. Yeah. Great guy.
Great actor. Emery Cohen. Yeah, great actor.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But yeah, I think a lot of that also plays into that duality of ambition and how humbled Marty is, because all of these sequences we talk about, whether it be trying to get the dog out the first time, that leads to a shootout later, the bowling alley sequence, the motel room that he rents and then falls through the floor, trying to steal one of Kay's necklaces. Yeah, like all of these moments, all of these schemes fail. Like everything he gets himself into, it ultimately all blows up in his face.
Yeah.
And maybe you could argue that at a point it gets redundant or that point is made, but I think there's purpose to how the film builds that up, continues to show us these things, especially with how all of these other characters are involved. It's not just Rachel, it's also Kay. She is involved in a way.
Yeah. She has her own arc here.
Absolutely. Milton to a degree, especially near the end of the film, or Dion and his father, how they're involved, or his partner for the bowling alley sequence. I'm trying to recall the character's name. I don't. Wally,
the Tyler the Creator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like all of these relationships are affected by Marty's choices.
Yeah.
And I think by continually showing us that, it slowly begins to build that, those emotional layers of Marty that we were talking about earlier. Like it all cascades in a way. So like, I mean, maybe you could take out one or two of those sequences and the film doesn't change all that much, but I think by having them all here, when it makes those final moments all the more explosive, having experienced it in full.
Yeah.
I'll also say, blah, blah character, blah, blah theme, blah, blah propulsion. In the moment, it's like the most thrilling thing you can possibly imagine.
Yeah,
it's like like in that moment, you're like, there's nowhere else I would rather be than these guys running up trying to save this dog out of this house in the middle of nowhere. It's just bravura filmmaking. I mean, it's
so
just
thrilling.
It's incredible stuff. Yeah.
It's so thrilling in a vacuum, but at the same time, to your point, JD, maybe removing the scenes might not change the trajectory of the movie all that much, but if you remove a certain character, it completely adds a redundancy to the movie, I think. And that's when I go back to the Rachel character. If let's say hypothetically she was not part of, let's say, the house shootout scene, then it feels repetitive to me. But because it almost feels like it's weirdly adding her perspective to the danger, it adds a certain nuance to the situation that I don't think otherwise would be there. And I think the same thing could be said about Wally when the gas station blows up. Like it is ridiculous. It is basically taking what we saw in Uncut Gems and amping it up to 11 is basically what it's trying to do in an almost cartoonish like way. But when you think about what his backstory might be and how Marty is dragging I don't want to say innocent, but dragging other people into it for selfish reasons and how their lives are going to be so severely affected by his choices. it adds a completely different dimension to what could be otherwise seen as repetition for repetition's sake. I think that does add new nuances to this type of situation.
Well, exactly. And that's why I go back to the diversity of it, because it's not as if it's Rachel who's there in every single scene. No, she has her through line. Then there's the one with Wally. There's the one with Ezra. There's the one with Kay. Like, there's a bunch of different characters that are involved here that demonstrate or that add more layers to those polarities we mentioned earlier. So, I do think there's a distinction, even if it all inevitably comes back to those central themes. From moment to moment, there is a distinction. And just to Jay's point, even if you remove the thematic and emotional context out of it, it is just thrilling to watch. It's just a lot of fun as well.
Absolutely.
I enjoy the film just from the filmmaking perspective. But that's why it's also one of the best, if not the best film of the year, because it's able to marry filmmaking and theme and character and emotion and all of those things.
Is this your favorite Safdie production, JD? Because I know you've been kind of hit or miss on their films as a duo up until this point.
Yeah, I don't love the Safdies the way that you guys do. I like Good Time, don't love it. I am close-ish to loving Uncut Gems. That wasn't quite my top 10, but I did have that in my top 20 in 2019 when that came out. And while that list has shifted for me since then, I don't think that's changed all that much. Marty Supreme of their crop is by far my favorite. Like, it's not even
It's the Supreme. Okay.
It's the Supreme. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like my Safdies Supreme. I don't like them regular. I like them Supreme.
Period drama.
Yeah.
Set in the 50s with 80s needle drops.
Yeah.
Which
So
normally
I can't believe
doesn't...
I'm an hour into a movie review with JD Duran and I haven't talked about the score yet.
I know. I was
Who
building
are you?
to that.
I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about JD.
Yeah. We have a lot.
It's
we're
very
gonna be here
good.
for another 30 minutes.
Look,
I do want to speak to what you just said there, Jay, because normally I don't really like when movies do needle drops like that, where it's something that takes place.
Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby.
Actually, that's a movie I love. So it's weirdly, I guess. Yeah, well, I guess here's a great example. This is going to be a hot take that's probably going to get a lot of people listening out there thinking, I don't want to trust Brendan's opinions ever again. But the David Bowie needle drop in Inglourious Bastards, I can't stand it. Like, that's an example. That takes me out of the time period of that particular environment for that movie. But here, it doesn't. Like, this one doesn't. When I think of something like Forever Young or...
They establish it so early. It's just like, you got to...
It kind of fits the aesthetic in a way, given the fact that these feel like 70s movies.
What it did for me was question when the movie took place for an extended period of time,
which I kind of like about that. It gives it almost like this like dystopian like energy.
It's like they're dressed like they're listening to the Beach Boys, but like they keep playing synthy stuff. Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
but even so, okay, we're in the 50s.
But all the needle
keep
drops,
talking about World War II.
Yeah, all the needle drops, lyrically speaking, very much fit the current moment and the overall theme of the movie. Sometimes maybe a bit obviously, but I don't necessarily mind that obviousness when you're picking songs that don't necessarily take place in the world that the film takes place in.
Especially when the songs themselves are just bangers. Again, it's just like, also, the song is good. Take it out of the context of the movie. I just like listening to this song.
I mean, I love Gasoline by David Bowie, but when I hear it in Inglourious Bastards, I'm like, this doesn't feel like a World War II movie anymore.
That's nuts. That is incredible. But I
mean, that's lesser Tarantino.
I can
another conversation.
Pretzel my mind into maybe making sense of that insane opinion.
Love you too, Jay.
Glad to be back.
Yeah. But Forever Young, I mean, obviously, there's a little irony to that, given your thoughts, Jay, on.
I will say the final needle drop of this movie, which is also played in the main trailer for Marty Supreme, which I don't recommend people watching. That is one of those needle drops where I was like, it's so obvious thematically speaking that it got me worried. It's kind of like when you hear the song Zombie by the Cranberries in a zombie movie and you think like that's just too obvious that it all actually doesn't make sense because that's not what the song's about.
Or like any song in a Robert Zemeckis movie.
That's a very, very fair comparison. But at the very least, the song that crystallizes Marty Supreme lyrically speaking, kind of sums up the entire movie.
Yeah.
So and I appreciated that.
Sometimes subtlety is overrated, man. Like
really
sometimes
is.
something hits so hard and obviously that it's just like
I care
yeah,
about the
perfect.
I care about the sincerity of how it's placed and how it makes you feel, as opposed to the density of how it makes you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely times where, again, Robert Zemeckis, when in Flight, a character is doing heroin and they're playing Red Hot Chili Peppers Under the Bridge, I am like, chill out. This is horrible. But if a song is one, great enough in and of itself, and two, so fitting, it is one of those things where it's like, if you're going to do something that bold, it's either the perfect shape, or even if it's slightly off, if the groove is a quarter inch off, it's not going to fit and it's going to annoy the crap out of anybody watching the movie.
Yeah.
But I do think they nail it in this one.
Yeah, they fit. You're right.
Yeah. And the score is astounding. It's one of the best scores of the year.
From second one of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, from the very, very beginning. Yeah, it's quite incredible. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to love here. I know we're going a little long here, but Brendan, did you want to talk a little spoilers? Should I give you some space to get into a little detail here?
Is this where I finally reveal online what's going on in my life?
You don't. I mean, you could be vague about it.
No,
but...
you know, my wife and I are about to make the announcement on social media pretty soon, so we have enough listeners out there that I guess it's okay. So yeah,
what an episode for me to be on.
Oh,
how
yeah,
exciting! Okay,
yeah,
so
I've been waiting
for this
for
moment
you too,
for
Jay.
years. I've been waiting for this for a long
Brendan
time.
is quitting the podcast to start a table tennis career.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
In actuality, it's
We'll
probably
find him in
related to
Japan.
music and not table tennis, but still the point is made.
So spoilers for the rest of this conversation for Marty Supreme.
Yeah. So this
Brendan.
movie, first off, I'll say this movie first crystallizes with an epic match in Japan between Marty and his previous opponent that he lost out to in the beginning. And the way this match crystallizes, as we sort of alluded to already, it's Marty kind of weirdly fighting for himself as opposed to his status as the greatest ping pong player in the world. And it crystallizes with him finally beating his opponent to prove a point for himself, and in a way kind of combating against capitalism in a way also. I feel like that's kind of the theme of the movie in that moment too. But he very openly and lovingly embraces his opponent, his Japanese opponent, saying, I hope you go on to win.
Name, by the
Endo,
way.
yeah. I hope you go on to win. And it's a very sincere gesture. And in that moment, you realize he is finally letting go of these superficial, selfish tendencies. And at this time, Rachel, who is carrying his child, is in the hospital and is about to give birth. And he flies home, finds out that she is in the maternity wing and is being operated on. And he kind of loses it. And the first thing he says when he gets to the hospital, he says the exact opposite thing he constantly said throughout the movie. Because constantly Rachel would confront him saying, listen, this is your child. And he would say, no, it is not mine. First thing he says when he gets to the hospital, I'm the father. And she gives birth. It's a successful birth. He goes up against the glass, sees his child for the first time, and breaks down crying. And as someone who is about to be a dad next year, that destroyed me. That
Damn, dog.
absolutely
Welcome to the
destroyed me.
club.
Yeah, man.
Welcome.
Congratulations, the
excited.
big announcement.
Yes. Brendan is going to be a dad. I'm deeply, deeply excited. You got through that. I almost cried, but we made it through. Yeah,
But it's a great moment that also just recontextualizes the movie as a coming of age movie, as I talked about in my opening thoughts. And I think
And it also recontextualizes the imagery of the white ping pong ball on the white background. It's just like all of these white things on top of each other that seem indistinguishable, but now he is able to distinguish them, or is interested in distinguishing them. That's good.
Interesting.
that's a
Good writing.
very great symbolic comparison. I love that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, he did not have an orange baby. Spoiler alert.
You did not have an orange baby. and apparently everyone in that hospital was white,
Yes.
which might be period appropriate as well. Unfortunately.
Yeah, indeed. But I agree with those thoughts. I mean, that whole match that he has with Endo, obviously it was for him and only him. And the gratitude that he shows Endo is so unlike the Marty that we had known to that point. But I do think the film make sense of that moment, certainly gives credence to it, especially thanks to Chalamet's performance.
Yeah.
And then to embrace his fatherhood. And I agree with you, Brendan, wholeheartedly. I find it fascinating that, and we somewhat alluded to it earlier, he did not want anything to do with this up until that moment. But then embraces it. And that moment up against the glass also destroyed me as well. And I mean, there's just something about Chalamet and the way he can tap into overt emotion like that. But man, that close up and the way it just lingers there, I love it.
And
I
Tears
deeply
for
love
Fears
it.
doing such great work on top of that too.
Oh, so good.
Everybody wants to.
But Tears,
go.
such a I mean, it's so obvious, but you got it.
It is, but it actually lyrically makes sense.
It works, and also it's a banger in and of itself. It's so sometimes you just play a song because it freaking rips, and that is part of the thinking there. I think it is. I mean, Chalamet. I truly used to just be like, Chalamet is going to flame out in 4 years. Like, what are we even doing? And now I really am like, okay, he's the only guy who gets to keep doing what he wants to do. He has basically carved out a spot for himself for the next 20 years. He's going to be a part of my life, and I'm going to be happy that he's a part of my life for the next 20 years. I think he's amazing in this movie. I think his simultaneous vanity of the art of acting and lack of vanity of his own persona on screen creates very much that 1970s sort of, I want to be the best there is, but I want to be the best there is in the name of great art.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the only guys doing that right now that's under 60. It's crazy. He does feel kind of a bygone era, and I hope beyond hope that this movie does well, because this is the exact kind of movie that doesn't get made anymore. A $70 million movie with a movie star based on nothing is something that I would love to get back on a regular basis. But I think this movie is actually very important from a box office perspective.
I think it is. But the thing is, like, I actually think it's. Well, let me ask you guys, do you think this is an accessible kind of movie? Like, do you think this is something that general audiences will gravitate towards?
I think this is,
Yes and no.
I guess the kind of barometer for me in that regard is, would I recommend? People in the office know that I'm like a movie guy, quote unquote. If somebody asked, hey, what's a movie I should go see that came out recently? I think I would feel okay recommending Marty Supreme mostly.
Okay. I guess
caveats.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I'm the same way. It would come with.
It's not Top Gun Maverick.
No, it's not like
you
that.
know.
It would certainly come with a few asterisks, right?
Did you like Uncut Gems? Answer that first.
Did you see
It's
Uncut
not
Gems?
as off-putting as Uncut Gems.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I've actually seen a few critics out there say that this is like if Uncut Gems was 10 times more anxiety-inducing, and I don't buy that. I think that is a terrible depiction of this movie, and that's not a bad thing. I just think it's
This movie has catharsis, which Uncut Gems does not.
no,
That's true.
no.
I think given where it ends, it makes it much more like easily recommendable than Uncut Gems.
But it is also a movie with opening credits over sperm flowing through the fallopian tube into an egg that turns into a ping pong ball.
I mean, that's very Uncut Gems, though, which also.
I mean, that is
the
the exact trick they pulled in Uncut Gems. That's kind of what I'm talking about, where I'm like, yeah, I mean, I loved it when it was a colonoscopy, and I love it now when it's sperm flowing into an egg.
But
I love it when it's a rock. When the rock that Kevin Garnett wants to buy, and I love it when it's a rock from the pyramids. But
they both both opening credit sequences actually serve symbolic purposes for their respective films. Here, it's about fatherhood, and in Uncut Gems, using that colonoscopy, it concludes by basically concluding that this man was just an ass. That's what he was. So
and also they just rock in the moment too. Like that's everything. I'm like, it all has a purpose, and also it rocks in that second. It's the best of both worlds, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I could recommend this to people in my life. I like if my brother asked me if he should go see this, and like it's such a I don't know, but
It just
I mean
depends
obviously I would say
person to
yes because
person. I would recommend it to my brother.
My
Yeah.
dad would like this. I
It
think.
might depend on the person. I mean that's a good point.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that this is a lot different than something like One Battle After Another because Warner Brothers could afford to lose on that film.
Yeah.
A24 is not quite in that same position. But
Even though One Battle was like twice as expensive as this movie, or
Yeah.
what
One
was
battle was
One
like,
Battle like 120?
I think it was close to 150 actually.
So double,
Was it?
this, yeah. That's crazy. This movie
Yeah.
feels really expensive.
It does.
It
yeah.
does.
It's all up
Yeah.
there. I mean, so is One Battle. but
It's pretty epic. Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's tracking really well. So fingers crossed. Hopefully we get there. But yeah, I think this is going to do very well. I think.
And I
it will
think
be
that has a
a
lot to do
success.
with Timothée Chalamet.
Well, he is a star.
I agree.
And he like
He
I
is a
said,
star.
my sister really wants to see this movie, but it's because she loves Timothée Chalamet. I don't know if this would be a movie that would gravitate towards her
No,
if not for Timothée Chalamet.
it's
Yeah,
R-rated.
he's-
It's very R-rated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Timothée
and-
Chalamet is just out here grinding like Marty
Yeah.
Supreme himself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
trying to
He
make this
very
movie
much
some
is.
money.
He very much is. And I deeply love how he's leaning into it. He's very much leaning into the ego, much like
I mean, a lot of
Marty
it is
would.
very annoying, but if it
Mhm.
makes money for movies like this, I'm all for it.
Me too.
I'm all for it too.
Me too.
I'm okay with the weird. I have no problem with.
There is a fine
what he's
line
trying to
between
do.
great marketer and Chet Hanks, which is what I fear he is starting to maybe verge into ever so slightly. But we will see.
Yeah,
This is a great movie, and I hope it makes all the money in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's pandering to a certain crowd and some of his fans to some degree, but I also
That
think he's
streamer
playing up.
generation.
I think he's playing up the character a little bit of who he is in
Oh,
this
for sure.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when he makes the rounds for Dune Part 3, it might be a little less weird. But we'll see. Maybe he does channel Chet a little bit too much moving forward.
Well, for
We'll
that one,
find out.
I'm guessing Warner Brothers or whoever owns Warner Brothers at that point, who knows, will not quite give him the leeway that A24 will with
Yeah.
with this
Yeah,
one.
because A24 loves this. Loves
Yeah.
the weird
Yeah.
shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out how can we make a lot of money off of movies like this, and
Mhm.
Chalamet
This is how
is
you do it. Yeah.
shining the light.
And
He's the
I
beacon.
feel like A24's history of making money with their movies is to provoke and be provocateurs, if you will. And that's why Civil War did as well as it did, despite how people felt about that movie.
Yeah.
Did that movie make good money?
Actually, I think it did.
That movie's
thought
not
it did.
bad.
I thought it did.
Civil War is not bad.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I was a little mixed on it, but I didn't hate it. Did not
I'm-
hate it.
Soft pro.
Soft
That movie made almost 130 million
Yeah.
worldwide.
on a $50 million budget. So
So
So-
even then, it's like,
That's enough
But-
to say, like, that's, I guess that's close to 2.5.
I feel like
times
for
the budget.
people to be okay with a $70 million price tag on Marty Supreme or be enthusiastic about it, it has to make
Yeah.
like 200.
Mhm.
There's
We'll
no
see.
way this movie makes $200 million. I don't think. And if it does, then Timmy Chalamet is
A
it's him and
genius.
Leo. Like that's it.
yeah. I mean, and we'll see, because there's also the awards part of it, and
Mhm.
this film is, like nominations for the Oscars are in like what 3 weeks from now, I think. So that will obviously enhance a lot of people's curiosities,
Yeah.
that may miss it initially. So who knows? It may. I mean, because like Everything Everywhere All at Once made millions, and
Yeah.
this I think has that potential. So we'll see.
I hope
we'll
so.
see.
It deserves
at any
it.
rate.
Yep. Everything Everywhere All at Once made almost 150 million worldwide.
Okay, there you go. And what was that budget? Do you have that in front of you?
That's a great question. I don't think I have that yet.
I mean, it's not any more than this.
25 million.
25, so half. Yeah.
Half to a third. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's more of a third. Yeah, if this is 70. So there's a long way to climb for Marty Supreme, comparatively speaking.
But it has
Materialist,
the
that was a movie
And-
that they were very happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Movie made over 100 and cost, I don't know. How much does Pedro Pascal's leg surgery cost? I think that was their biggest expense for that one.
But is this the most marketing? Because like I don't like Everything Everywhere All at Once did not have a huge marketing budget.
No, it
so
was
maybe
good.
it's
It
more
had,
problem.
it had some well-cut trailers that spoke the movie for people.
Yeah,
But a lot of this stuff is more guerrilla marketing stuff where it's Chalamet volunteering his time.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of filming it
Making weird
himself
music
too.
videos.
It's not
Basically
like
his-
buying
his-
a bunch of spots on Sunday Night Football.
And
or
that's what I
anything.
mean. Like
just-
it's not
Yeah.
conventional marketing, but
It's not
you know,
ad
they don't-
space.
Did, did the blimp thing, some billboards. I mean, that's about it. As far
like he's
as
doing
crazy things.
Drewski videos, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people who's anyone listening are like, you're too old to be saying Drewski. I'm like, I know, I'm aware, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, we'll keep an eye on it. If you agree or disagree with anything we had to say, you can leave a comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can always email us insessionfilm@gmail.com. Jay, thanks so much for being here, my friend. It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys. I mean, let's make sure we do this a few times next year. Anytime you're like,
Yes.
oh, Jay might like that movie, please, please.
You're welcome
please
back
shoot me a
anytime,
text.
my friend.
Or
You and
if you're
Ryan?
like, Jay would hate that movie, that would be fun too.
That'll be fun
Yeah.
too. It'll be
but-
even more fun if JD loves that movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
that would be a real
That'd be great.
throwback.
You'll for sure have to be here for the Miami Vice remake.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. That's already been
that's
penciled in. Hell yeah.
Prerequisite. Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, that might have been the last time you were here, to be honest, when we
it might have been too
revisited Miami
long,
Vice.
far too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but seriously, it was great to be back on the show. Would
Yeah.
love to do this with more regularity.
Yeah.
So
of
really
course.
appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, you and Ryan are welcome anytime. You just let me know if there's a film you're interested in. We'll get you on the books for sure. Where can we find you on social media, my friend?
Yeah, you can find our podcast over on the Awards Watch podcast feed. We're doing I host a show called Director Watch on that feed. Right now we're covering the films of Warren Beatty. So
Right.
some interesting conversations going on there. Plenty of fun stuff to go to come on in 2026. You can find me on Letterboxd, Jay Ledbetter, Twitter, where I never post anything at Mr. Jay Ledbetter.
Yeah.
Any writing I'm doing over at awardswatch.com.
All right. Yep. Please go and give them a follow. Make sure you check out their show. A lot of tangents, a lot of rabbit holes, but it's very good.
Yeah.
So
I was
please-
pretty under control today. Give me some
Very
credit.
good.
I did not go down many rabbit holes today.
You didn't have
Yes.
Ryan here to, just let you loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Director Watch, but it was almost called Rabbit Hole. It was
I
almost
mean,
called
there's plenty
Side
to talk
Tangent.
about. Look, I say some of our episodes are 2.5 hours long. You will always get at least like an hour 15 talking about the movie itself. It's just
Yeah.
above and beyond that. What else are we
just-
talking about?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the box office for
It's the
Marty Supreme.
toppings on a Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Or-
exactly.
Unfortunately, that's just worth talking
Sometimes there might be a little more whipped cream than you would like. Sorry.
Exactly. Sorry. That's okay.
It just
We
goes
love
to show you
cherries.
guys cover the gamut. You guys are
Yeah.
interested
Yeah.
in multiple things outside
Yeah.
of movies.
It's very,
Maybe
yeah, very
sometimes
good.
we cover, a Robert Altman movie and we end up talking about Akon City, the hypothetical future city that Akon founded off the coast of Africa. Who knows? You never know over there at old Director Watch.
That's incredible.
Maybe the fact that he
Yeah.
created his own Bitcoin called Acoin. I don't know. Maybe that will come up.
See, that's why you have to check out their show. It's always really fun in that regard. Anyway, Jay, thanks for being here. Always do appreciate you. Congratulations to Brendan and
Yeah.
his lovely wife once again. Very, very excited for you. Next year, #Brendan Tears. That'll be officially
I don't know what
in
that is.
play.
I never heard of that. Can't
Jay,
relate
anyway,
to
what
that
was
just
your
yet.
biggest crying movie of 2025?
Me?
Well, I was going to say JD, then I'll go to you, Brendan.
Oh,
as
okay.
well,
I'm
but
sorry.
just
I
wanna
didn't
know.
hear the name that you announced there.
this will come as no surprise, but it was Hamnet.
Damn
That
it.
was it. Yeah. That's
Glad
that
I
was-
wasn't on that episode.
Yeah, there was a lot of #JD Tears for that conversation. I'd say that was it. Yeah, I mean there's certainly a few others, but
You know what mine was? 28 weeks later. Movie
Yep, that
had
was a
me
good one.
balling.
yep, we talked about that one.
Don't
quite
you
a bit.
mean 28 years later?
Oh, did I say weeks?
Yeah, you did.
No,
Sorry to
that's
correct
what
you
I
on that.
meant. 28 weeks later is the
And
one.
I just
A
assumed 20.
rewatch.
I didn't
of
even hear
28
the weeks
later.
part.
28 years later. Yes. That,
Yeah.
The last 25 minutes of that movie. Woo.
Quite,
Holy
quite
moly.
good. Yeah.
That was my answer to your question there. Is 28
Yeah.
years later. That one
Yeah.
destroyed me.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, appreciate you as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the In Session Film Podcast.